Difficult. Women. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to Difficult Women. I'm your host, Marie.
And I'm your other host, Katy. I never know what to say when you say I'm your host. I'm always like, and I'm Katy.
No, you're the other host.
I'm host number 2. I'm the host over here.
We'll start again. You can say it first.
I'm Katy. That's how I would say it.
And I'm your host, Marie.
No, that's not right. Anyway.
No, together we are.
I'm the stranger that wandered into the room. No. And that's your host. I'm the weirdo that just kind of shows up.
and I'm the person who lives here.
Yeah.
Welcome to Difficult Women. We are also in a band called Reformed Whores.
Check us out. We're pretty rad.
Yeah, we're super cool.
What was the word I came up with the other day? It's like our rad
ass.
Rad ass. I said,
I saw
our
that.
group was rad ass.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're rad ass.
I like that.
Yeah.
A rad ass folk pop comedy duo.
Can you help us with that, you guys out there?
Know.
We're trying to figure out, we're not as country as we used to be. Anyway, we talked about that before. You don't need to hear it again. Whatever.
Yeah, but if you want to email us at difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com.
We love emails.
We do. We love them. Speaking of which, we've got an email.
Exciting.
And I believe this person just followed us on Patreon as well.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Thank you.
His name is Harvey. I won't say his last name.
Yes.
But Harvey wrote to us, longtime fan, 6 years, and look forward to your podcast every Tuesday morning. Thank you, Harvey. So he goes into, I wanted to add to the stigma of aging in today's society. I am 38, and as fun as my 20s were, I wouldn't relive them. Too much self-consciousness, insecurities, striving up that social ladder, and all my friends were in the same boat. I found that I enjoyed older people's company because they seemed like they had it together. That makes sense.
Okay. It's an illusion, but okay.
Yeah. Now that I'm in my late 30s, I've really enjoyed this age because I was able to accomplish much more. I feel people take me more seriously now, and I don't think many people wanted some young adult's opinion back then. My wife is 16 years older than me, and she makes getting older look exciting.
Oh, I love that.
And then he says she's a big fan of yours as well. And I bought both of your albums for a road trip we had, and it was freaking great. Yay. So based on both of our experience, aging is for the pros. I guess we all become pros someday.
Love it.
Harvey.
I love that.
Thanks, Harvey. I think that's great. I think that's a great attitude, and way to go for getting that wife that's 16 years older than you.
It's so good. I love that. I realized the other day, my aunt married a man that was, it's like 15 years younger, 12 years younger.
Yes.
And they are such a good match.
I love
that. It is so great. Yeah. And they're so cool. I'm into it. I'm gonna cougar somebody.
Cougar it out.
Cougar
man
child. Not really.
It's hot.
Child, but not like someone of a legal age. I'm not a Jeffrey Epstein. Don't get all excited over there. No.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your email. That's really cool. I think that it's true that you're right, that also ageism can work the other way where people don't take young people seriously sometimes either. Mm-hmm. And that could be hard. But at least you get to grow older and grow into your
yes,
whatever.
There's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Neato.
Neat,
rad.
How are we going to transition into this
topic? Yeah, this is going to be a rough one. So we have we're going to talk about something a big topic.
A big topic.
And
I'm a little nervous to talk about it.
Okay. Why are you nervous?
Number one, didn't know what it was.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. I knew that I'd heard of it. Mm-hmm. I thought I knew what it was. Mm. And then after spending all day researching it, I didn't. It's much bigger of a thing than I thought it was. Like way bigger. And also I have a lot of work to do.
Right. So here's the thing. So our topic today is intersectional feminism, but intersectional whatever. But we'll stick with feminism because it's just too many things. I was worried, like a little nervous about talking, or I am a little nervous about talking about this because we are two white women. Mm-hmm. But I also feel really, and I think that a lot of I hope our listeners are from all demographics and ages and genders and all that, and races. But I'm sure there's at least some white people listening. And I think it is important for white people to talk to other white people about some of these things too. Not to speak over the voices of people of color or transgender people, but just to help amplify those voices. So that's what we're here today.
Yes.
Talk about this topic a little.
Well, how would you then explain intersectional feminism?
So the concept of intersectionality was brought up by this, she's a civil rights advocate and a lawyer. Her name's Kimberly Crenshaw. And she has this whole analogy about imagining like these lanes of a highway. So if like one lane of a highway is like being a black person and another lane of a highway is being a woman.
So race, gender.
Right. Or whatever it could be. And it could be lots of things, you know, but I'm just using those as an example.
I watched a video of this. So I'm like, okay, I'm right with it. They're with you.
So then as like the cars are traveling, those are sort of like the rights and the issues and the things that come up as there's a one point in where those things cross, right?
At an intersection. Right. Okay.
And for example, someone that would fit both of those things would be a black woman.
Right. Okay.
So when there's issues that come up, sometimes you almost like bypass this issue where you have a person who is black and is a woman, and there's nothing to protect that person for both of those things.
Right.
So a really good example was I watched this video of her talking about there's an amazing TED Talk. She's very clear about it.
I watched that too.
Right.
This is exciting.
And she talks about how like there was this there was a woman who had been applying for a job in like a car dealership and or some car factory or something, and she got denied the job, and she said it's because I'm black. It was because I'm a black woman. And the judge threw out the case or just didn't said, no, that's not true. And his proof was because they had black people working there, but they were mostly in like maintenance and stuff like that and janitorial things. And then they had women working there, but those women were all white and they were working in like, you know, as the secretaries and things. And so the judge's perspective was if we cover, you know, you're trying to claim too many issues. So that like, if you get to say, well, I'm discriminated against because I'm black and because I'm a woman, then you have an unfair advantage over women who can only, white women who can only say, well, I'm being discriminated because I'm a woman. And you have an unfair advantage over black men who can say, well, so he's saying that like you get like double dipping. But in reality, what happened was that like then
she was discriminated against.
She got nothing.
Yeah.
And that there's no
justice
at all. She gets like nothing from that. So one thing that I really liked about what she was talking about all this is that there was no word for this before. There was no word for a person who is more than one thing that is, you know, fighting in like civil rights or like equal rights or whatever. There was no word for it. So this woman came up with this concept of intersectionality. And it was funny because like, I feel like this comes up too, like where you think about like things like ghosting or like, what are all these like terms now? Everything has like a term and everyone's putting like a term on everything.
Yeah.
And so people are always like, why does everything have to have a name? And like, it gets so like kind of silly to some degree. So I think some people think of like, now there's a word for intersectionality. Oh, now we have to name that. And her point was that like, if you don't have a name on it, it is invisible. And if you don't see it as a problem, then you can't fix the problem.
Right.
And I thought that was so well said. And for example, so if you're still like, intersectionality, I don't get it. Like, what's the big deal? Think of like ghosting. Like ghosting has been happening forever, but it wasn't until we put a label on it and like we're able to call it out and call that feeling out.
Right.
That then you can say like, wait a minute, I don't like how that feels. And this is a problem. And now we can start to say like, call people out and say, hey, don't ghost me. You know what I mean? And like what you're doing to me is ghosting. So that's like just like a silly example, but just to make it a little easier for people to like understand, I think why it is important that we have a label on that and why it's a thing.
But she created it and she defined it in 1989 specifically for African American women's oppression.
But I think what she discovered, or like what I found that she had discovered, was that it was yes, I think that she is
that she initially
that, but she's discovered that like there's so many different ways that people's identities intersect. And that,
well, she was interviewed recently talking about how great it is to have this vocabulary word and to be able to spotlight exactly what is taking place, especially in LGBTQ communities, trans women,
right.
especially being able to really say there is a problem and why are they being discriminated against. And then it's
not included in the conversation.
And not included in conversation.
That their specific like issues are like ignored by like white feminism, for example.
White, yes. So this is what makes me nervous about talking about this subject, is because we are two white women. Right. And so we're two white women having a conversation about intersectional feminism that has to do with, yes, we are women. And I mean, we get discriminated against being white women. Sure.
Yeah.
But I think a bigger issue in America these days in today's society with this Trump like white supremacy vibe that's going on is that how much people of not our color are being discriminated against.
Right.
And their stories and experiences and we cannot relate. We have not experienced that. And so I get nervous talking about these types of issues because I don't want to misspeak or talk about another person's experience.
We might misspeak in this podcast. We might say something that isn't accurate, or maybe we don't say enough of a thing, or we don't explain. So if you hear something and you want to like let us know, please send an email and we'll definitely talk about it, because I think it is a big conversation.
Right.
But I also think that like I'm not here, you're not here to then I'm not going to talk about a Black woman's experience, because I don't know what that is. But what I can do is like I thought it was really powerful how she Kimberly opened this TED Talk, because she named some names. I'm going to name them right now so we can all kind of do this together. And here are the names: Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, Tamir Rice. These are probably names that are familiar. If they're not familiar, please look these names up, because this is something worth noting. And if you do not know who these people are, these are all people that died at the hands of cops, Black men that had died at the hands of cops. She says, these sound familiar, correct? Everyone's like, yeah. He's like, okay, now sit down. If everyone had stood up, she said, sit down if you don't know these names. And then she names Michelle Crusoe, Tanisha Anderson, Ora Russer, and I've never heard any of those names.
Right.
And those are women that died at the hands of cops, Black women who died at the hands of cops. And so that's a perfect example of how intersectionality is not work. It's not why it's important to acknowledge it.
Right.
Because those stories aren't getting told.
And who aren't telling those stories? Media?
Nobody. I mean,
nobody?
But the media certainly isn't telling them. That's definitely a big part of it. I mean, that probably helps a lot, right? When the media gets up and starts telling it. I think that part of what people say is like, well, yes, but like, we're telling the stories of these Black people that are being murdered. I'm like, yes, but those are just the men. And then we're telling stories about women being like harassed by Harvey Weinstein. It's like, yeah, but are you including the Black women that are being harassed or murdered by the police or whatever it is? Like, there's just more to this story that we're not getting. Right. And so she's got this really amazing campaign called Say Her Name. And at the end of this video, then they have an audience saying these women's names. I mean, I was like sobbing.
Yeah.
Because I think part of it too is it's like, if you don't say these individuals' names, if you don't notice them as individual people, then you don't, it just is like, oh, that's too bad. Yes, people are getting murdered by the cops and like whatever. Like, there's not like a real connection, or like in any kind of case, right? In any kind of like unjust case situation, the more you kind of like are able to understand that these are human beings and not just like a statistic or whatever.
Right.
So I think that it's just, I don't know. I think it's a really, I hate the word, use the word like cool, but I think it's like really awesome that she has like been able to find this great word that I think that does kind of help clarify where we're at with like people in the world.
Well, I was reading a blog about, it was a Black woman who wrote it, and she was saying like, fuck intersectionality feminism. Fuck that term. Fuck like the idea of it. How badly she wants to reclaim Black feminism.
Oh, sure.
And an example she gave, which I didn't know about this, but there was a Black woman in Alabama named Shakisha Clemens. She was at a Waffle House with a friend, and she ordered a meal and wasn't giving any utensils. So when she asked to get utensils, the guy said that'd be 50 cents. And she was like, what? That's insane.
Normal.
What are, and because she raised her voice and asked, they said that's crazy. He called the police. Police got there.
Right.
Took 2 white police officers, took her to the ground. She was in this really cute tube top type thing. Tube top came down.
Yes, I saw this video.
So she's topless, being handcuffed. Right. And so this black female blogger who was talking about this particular instance, that she said, this is when feminists need to rise up and make a big deal. And they didn't.
Right. That's why we're doing this podcast right now. Right. Because guess who could stand up and help?
Right.
All these fucking white women that claim to be feminists and don't fucking say anything.
Right.
When it's not a white woman that's in trouble. I mean, that. So
or a black man in trouble. Because I feel like sometimes it's that intersectionality that's like, okay, well, I clearly understand that a black man is being, police brutality rate with black men is way higher than whatever. Awful, and so I can clarify that and put a name to it and fight for that. But then when it happens to a black woman, then why aren't we then marching the streets for this woman?
Right.
I mean, and I'm saying that to myself, and I'm saying like,
and that's exactly, no, you're right. And I think that, that's, it's funny because I'm sure, like, if a black woman's listening right now, it's like, these fucking white girls.
Right, of course.
But the truth is, I think what's unfortunate, and this is just the truth, is that, like, we have been sheltered from these things as white women. You know what I mean? Like,
privilege.
We don't know.
Yes,
yeah,
I think
this
it's
white
called
privilege is that, like, we just don't, it's just not a thing that we have to, like, think about or worry about or whatever. So we have to step up.
We have,
and
if you're in
learn
that
about
Waffle
it
House,
ourselves.
but also,
Yeah,
so
if
I read, if you're in the
stand up
Waffle
for her.
House, you have to stand up for her.
And if you were not in the Waffle House,
you need to
read
stand
about
up for
the
it.
story
Right.
and then be outraged about it,
Right.
you know, and say like, this is not okay,
right?
You know, that's an interesting. So we didn't quite follow through on this like idea of like black feminism,
right?
But like,
right.
It makes me think of another thing that I was thinking about where they're one of my favorite authors, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She said she wrote this book called Americana. It's really, really good. You should all read it. It's amazing. But she was a big voice in the feminist arena, or has been, and she's a black woman from Nigeria. And somebody asked her about, do you think trans women count as like women, or what are your feelings about that? And her response was, she's like, she feels like trans people have their own sort of struggle that they are going through. She acknowledges that there's a struggle, but she didn't necessarily count it as part of like traditional feminism, or that they, you know, they had a different experience because they grew up as, for example, a trans grew up as a boy and had the experience of being male for the first part of their life. So her argument was that they didn't have the full female experience. So their issues are different and separate from like feminist issues, was her sort of argument. I don't know where she lands on this now, but this is where she then got, people were very upset about this. And I thought it was really the response from the trans community was, I thought, well said, which was that like, while a cis woman may have a difficult childhood because of her being a woman, a female as a child, there's also all these privileges that cis women have because they are accepted as women. And so they, you know, even if there's like a lot of, you know, stuff against women, all this you know, what is the word?
Sexist?
Yeah. Like there's sexism against women and there's, you know, that kind of thing. They still have the privilege of being seen as a woman, accepted as a woman, respected as a woman. And, so there's still, and then the problem is that there's these trans women are facing tons of violence and all these things. So if we don't give them a place to have a voice either, the violence is still happening. Like, it's just that it doesn't mean it's going, you know, women are being abused and, you know, by people, whether they're cis women or whether they're trans women. And they're women. So why can't we just get on board? But it's interesting. I think that like, I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer to this, but there is sort of this idea of like, maybe there can be black feminism, you know, and trans feminism and white feminism. I know that we don't need white feminism, you know, but then I think that intersectionality is still going to be a part of that, no matter how you look at it. I think you always have to like include that as part of like if we're going to really do this, like, so we all have to stand up for each other, I guess is my point.
Right. And recognize that everybody is human and and a person. And that's what equality. And I think that, when I was younger in high school, even, the word feminist, we did not call ourselves feminists. I remember thinking that word was bad, like an angry, crazy woman. And then in high school and in college, then learn really what feminism means and what a feminist truly is. I am a feminist, obviously. Sure. Like, what are we doing here if we're not being feminists? But to understand, even nowadays, I'll ask some of our guy friends, and they're like, "Oh, I wouldn't say I'm a feminist." I'm like, "Why is that word such a negative? All it means is equal rights, equal to see men and women as the same.
Right.
That's it." Right. So everyone should be a feminist in my mind.
Right, sure.
But but again, like, that's the journey that I've been on of like understanding what kind of feminist I really do want to be, and this intersectionality.
Yes, I think that's what's like, that's what like makes me like excited about this concept, is that I think that like I grew up a feminist for sure. Like there was a lot of I think my dad was very like, he had all his sisters and a strong mother, and I think he felt like a feminist, and that was not a dirty word in my house at all. But to like, and then to feel like, okay, I get this and I know what I'm doing and I know like feminism, and then to realize that like I have been unknowingly excluding people from my feminism.
Right.
I didn't fully appreciate that like it wasn't just one way, or that people have different kinds of fights that they're fighting. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that they all fall under the umbrella of feminism, because women doesn't mean white women. Women means women. And I think that is like such a funny thing. It's interesting too with like, I didn't go into this a ton, but I know that there's some pushback to people like Gloria Steinem, right? I mean, she's always had she's been controversial for many reasons, but was a real hero, a feminist hero to many, and has been and is, and I'm sure there's a lot of good things. But one of the things that people have been calling her out about is this sort of like white feminist perspective.
Agenda.
And I wanted to bring this specific thing up because I think that this is like a really good example of this, because and one that makes me go, oh, right. So like she got in hot water during the election because she said, if you're a millennial woman and you're not voting for Hillary and you're voting for Bernie, you're only voting for Bernie to like please the boys. She's like, I get it. Like there's all these boys voting for Bernie, so you're just trying to please the boys. And that is such a white woman perspective, and such a
God, that undercuts everything.
And the thing about it, when you break it down, it's like, sure, from like a white perspective and a very simplified viewpoint, her argument was like, why wouldn't you want a woman in office? Like, this is our chance to have a woman in office for equality, right?
Right.
But if you look at their records, Bernie was by far
the bigger feminist
candidate. Well, not even aside from the feminism part of it, he's by far a better candidate for civil rights. So, and Hillary has a terrible record on civil rights. She did a very bad job campaigning to people that were people of color. Very, very bad job. So like, if you're a black woman in that situation now and you're trying to decide like, well, yes, I would like to see a woman in office, but this man has my best interests at heart as a black person. So where do I go? What do I choose? And for Gloria Steinem to then undermine that dilemma by just like breaking it down to being like, oh, you want to play, you just want to please the boys. It's like, you're not seeing the full picture here. And it's stuff like that. Like, I'm hoping somebody out there is going like, oh, right. People that, look, you can hate Bernie or whatever. I get all that. But don't forget, like, the truth about what those candidates were, support what their deal is.
Right. But also, if you raise a woman to have her own thoughts and feelings and be able to express her vote in any way she wants. Sure. Don't tell them to vote for somebody just because she's a woman.
That itself already, you're
that's
right.
The simplest thing of just like, wait, I thought you wanted to raise like rad ass women.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the layers of like problems with that statement are for sure in there.
Well, so I quickly jumped on the phone with my mom before you came over to just talk quickly. Like, what are her thoughts on intersectional feminism?
Well, that's interesting to hear, like her.
And she was like, what is that? But I don't know what that is. And we quickly just talked about, you know, the bubble that we grew up in Nashville and the privilege that we had there. And even now, and she'll say this, she still to this day has friends that just look like herself. Right. And so understanding what this type of feminism and how inclusive it needs to be for people of color and how we have to fight for everyone. It was just a quick little conversation of how I think so what I'm trying to say here in a roundabout way is how she doesn't have many friends of people of color.
Sure. And I think that like, that's probably
as a
really common.
72-year-old woman.
That's really common. I mean, certainly one thing you could do is try to like branch out and meet new people for sure.
Absolutely.
But even if like that's not going to happen for some reason, we have the internet.
Right.
And I think that that's one thing too. Like I've gone through stages and I'm still going through stages of like trying to be more aware of these things and all that. And I think that first thing is like, oh, I will ask all of my Black friends how they feel. And then you're like, no, that's so exhausting and that's not right. And that sort of response of like, you can look it up.
Right.
There's stuff online. There's videos online even that TED Talk where she was, so if you watch this TED Talk that,
say her name again,
Kimberly Crenshaw.
Yeah. Cause it's incredible.
But at the end she does say like, look, this is difficult to watch, but they have a video of like, of footage of these women being, attacked by these police officers. And, it's very hard to watch, but it's like, that's out there.
Right.
So even just being able
educate
to watch,
yourself.
yeah.
Right.
And those things like, I am kind of a believer in like, watching those videos when they come out because you need to like be not to be like all gross and whatever, but to really if you're struggling to understand how serious these issues are.
Well, I do think that
there's you can expose yourself to them.
Well, I've had conversations with friends in Nashville. A couple of my girlfriends have said, I don't watch the news. I can't. It's too I can't. But that's the problem right there.
Right.
You are a white woman living in your privileged bubble,
right?
Not educating yourself on the rest of the world,
and your news is not even telling you the whole story,
and it's not the whole
you're
story.
Not even watching,
right?
Yeah,
but then I think it's our duty almost. It's like especially if you're raising children.
Yeah,
I think if you're a mother, I mean, again, I'm not a mother, so I'm not trying to preach to be like if you have children, you should do this, but these people are being brutally beaten to death by police officers because of the color of their skin.
Right. In unfair numbers.
Yeah.
In numbers that are not equal. Yeah.
We've never experienced anything like that. We don't have to worry about saying goodbye to our father at night.
Right.
We don't have to worry about...
But you know what's crazy about all this too? Is like, this isn't new.
No.
This isn't like it's just happening now. This is stuff that's been happening since forever. And it's just because of like the dawn of cell phones that we're finally seeing it.
Right.
And I think that like it's really hard for white people to like understand that.
Yeah, I feel guilty.
I mean, and you can feel guilty and you can feel whatever. I mean, sure, feel whatever you feel.
Right.
But don't let the guilt stop you from like
absolutely
just having a voice around it or being, you know what I mean?
Or
like,
stop you from educating yourself on it and
absolutely.
then going
and please, for God's sake, don't walk around then being like, let me white explain to you
your experience.
Like I don't want to do any of that, but I do want to like make sure that there's at least an awareness, you know? And like that saying her name thing, I think is important too, to be like, look, this is happening, you know?
Right. Well, there was this woman, I believe it happened last year. There was a white woman. It was caught on, it was another video that went viral in this situation where there was two women speaking Spanish to each other in a grocery store. A white woman was then berating them and saying, if you're going to be in this country, you need to speak English. And I mean, horrible, horrible things. And then another white woman stepped up and like said, you know, back off. And, you know, this is what this country is about. I mean, she said all sorts of things, but then she got physically in front of these women because this other woman was getting in front of their faces.
Up in their faces, yeah.
And then she followed this other woman around the store and ended up calling the police, and she was arrested. And
the woman that had been
for discrimination and harassment and which she was, and they have it on camera. Yeah. But it did. So that is also what I talked about with my mom of how we have to know how to we have to use our privilege in these types of circumstances. I want to clarify too,
it's not about like being like a white savior or something.
No, and people did say like this woman isn't a hero.
Right.
Don't call her a hero.
This is you should be doing
this as a human
and not
being.
Asking for praise for it, but just like doing
just as a human being.
Yeah.
And I mean, we see stuff on the train, you know, and I've not something like that to that extreme, but I've role played in my head exactly what I would do.
Right.
And it can be really scary, I think. But
and I think also, of course, please, like if somebody seems insane or they have a gun or they have a knife, we're not advocating that like everybody like become a martyr. I mean, well, that's a whole other conversation. But I will say that like just, you know, so be careful, of course, but like there's certainly lots and lots of ways that we can stand up for people. One of them being privately. So when you're in a group of your white friends and somebody makes this like a remark that's example. Like not acceptable either against gay people or trans people or whatever, or black people or white people or somebody that, you know, if they don't get it, it's a really good opportunity to just be like, hey, actually that's like really not cool, or I really don't like it when you say that because of this. Or you can start a fight or however you want to do it, but like, you know,
but call them out.
Yeah, you can call them out and you can call out your best friends, and like they're tough conversations, but like it's important to start having these conversations so that we can make this unacceptable, you know, make some of this shit unacceptable. So I think that like it doesn't have to be this dramatic like I'm throwing my body in front of
I'm going to save
because
these
you know
people.
that sometimes that's not the right choice.
Or it's just,
you know?
hey, are you okay? Are you
are you okay? Or like keeping
okay?
an eye on what the situation.
Yeah, or just watch
and or calling the police from a safe distance, or what do you have to do? I mean, the police is always another problem, so be careful about that too, white people, because I think we have a tendency to call the police a lot and we don't need to.
Right.
One time, I saw smoke coming out of a building from my apartment, and I was like, "That building's on fire! I'm calling the police!" And I called 911, and then the fire people came, and it was just a factory.
It was a
factory. It wasn't on fire.
Oh no!
I was like, the police can help no matter what, and it's like, no, that's not always the case. So the police hate me too. It's fine. They're like, oh, this girl.
So when researching and teaching myself what intersectional feminism really means, Annie Lennox talks about global feminism.
Oh, that's actually something that I have a question about.
Okay.
So what does Annie Lennox say about
Well, so first, when I started looking this up, Annie Lennox in 2014 had said that twerking done by like Beyonce, Rihanna, Miley Cyrus is feminist light. And that it's because women are being seen as over-sexualized. And this is just adding to the bigger problem of she says that she finds it disturbing and thinks that it's very troubling, and coming from like a younger, like if there's a child in the audience, a 7-year-old watching Miley Cyrus twerk, how detrimental that can be to her growing up as a feminist and like respecting herself and her body and all that sort of stuff. But then now, cut to 2019, she's now on this whole global feminism movement that she's trying to push.
And what does she say about that?
I guess she has the story about how she was shopping and she saw a little kid in like a Wonder Woman t-shirt. And then she said, oh my goodness, what if Wonder Woman could connect everyday women and men to the facts about the gender equality experienced by millions of girls and women every day around the globe? So then she went home, she bought a t-shirt, took it home. I don't know what the t-shirt has to do with it. Like she was naked. She went to the store. Yeah, Wonder Woman shirts, actually. Yeah. That's a very good point. And then she wrote a list of facts and statistics on sheets, and she used social media on Instagram and stuff, holding messages up saying like #1 reason why I'm a global feminist. And tried to start this like social media campaign. And so, I mean, I think she's just trying to bring awareness to facts around the world about women. And so like 2/3 of 757 million adults who can't read and write around the world are women. And so, I mean, she has a lot of different examples and things. And she's really just trying to educate both men and women to get involved in this like global problem.
So that's
but to go from the twerking, sorry.
Well, what's interesting about the twerking thing is I feel like that's like we have all these like different like waves of feminism, you know what I mean? And so like that's so of the like our parents' era where like you'd burn your bra and you didn't wear makeup and you didn't own
well,
your...
that's what I thought what a feminist was.
And I think
you were angry and you burn your bra.
Yeah, and you weren't trying to be sexualized almost at all in a weird way. And then what people, I think, realized from that was that like a lot of women are like, no, but I like sex and I want to be a sexual being. And if we want
equality...
Yeah, and it's like that's, you know, so there's like another level. I remember there also being like this is sort of kind of off topic, but sort of just to demonstrate the difference between our generations with like feminism and stuff is like I am not on birth control. You're welcome, boys. Because I did not like being on the pill birth control because it just has not worked well with my body for various reasons. So I just don't take it anymore, and so I do other methods of birth control. We can talk about that another time, but nothing crazy. Condoms. I use condoms. It's like, okay.
What?
Yeah, it's nothing.
That's crazy.
I just like look at the moon and the position, and then I fuck. No,
don't do that. That doesn't work. You'll get pregnant.
No, but the point is that like in our generation, there's definitely been more of a people have been rejecting the pill a lot more than in previous generations, because I think in our mother's generation, it was a point of liberation to be on the pill. It was a godsend to have this pill that would prevent you from getting barefoot and pregnant for the rest of your life, you know, and that you'd have more control over your body. But what they didn't, so then of course, thank God for the pill. Don't get me wrong about that. But then what they didn't think about was how the pill was like, it's hormones and chemicals, like, and how does that affect our bodies? And maybe, you know, and now we also have some other methods of birth control we can use, but that like she could not understand why would be not on the pill. It's like we fought for you to have this thing, and you're like, thank you so much, but it makes me really depressed and want to kill myself. Like it's like there's like this that, you know what I mean? So that there are these, as time goes on, we learn more things, and you know, of varying degrees, and one of which is that like maybe in your time, you know, being sexual was like just for men, but we realized that like women also enjoy being sexual, and like that you shouldn't take, like, women should be allowed to be sexual and not objectified. So that's the next step. Let's go there, right? So that's my thought about the first part. The global feminism thing, I think, is I don't know what exactly she's doing.
Yeah,
we don't really know. We'll look into it one day. But the point is, in concept, I think that's also a really good point about intersectionality, right? That there's lots of, it's not just American feminism, it's like feminism for the whole globe, right? So I have a question. This is something that came up, that's been coming up in my brain, and I do not have an answer for this. And I'm not asking in a way that you're going to answer, because you're like, oh God, do I have to know? You're definitely not going to know the answer to this.
Okay.
I don't think there is an answer to this at the moment. Maybe there is. I don't really know.
Maybe I have it.
No, you don't. You definitely don't. You definitely don't have this answer. But a thing that's been coming up where I've been reading about like little by little, and it came up with the Gloria Steinem thing, I think. I think it was maybe Gloria Steinem something came up. Anyway, the point is, so global feminism, right? And intersectionality, women from lots of different backgrounds, races, also religions, right? So there are some women that are fighting for women in the Middle East to not have to wear any kind of head covering because they feel like it represses the women, right? But I also have heard Muslim women say, no, I'm choosing this. This is my religion. Right. I want to wear my, I want to cover my head. I want that. I don't know where to land on that. Like, I don't know. And then the argument back is like, no, but your religion is oppressing you. She's like, yeah, but it's my religion that I'm choosing to be in. So that's like a really interesting, that is intersectional to the nth degree. Right. Because it's like religion, there's race, there's feminism, there's like all these things coming together. I am not Muslim, so I have no idea what that would feel. I don't know. I don't have an opinion. There's probably varying opinions about it. But I just want to throw that out there as like a thing that's like, I think that it doesn't just begin and end with like Black women, of course. It's like there's so many different levels of intersectionality, and I do not. I mean, that's why I'm like, you don't know the answer. No.
But I can picture a white feminist really fighting for that woman's right to not wear that,
exactly,
and then have her be like,
I want to wear it.
I actually really would like. It's my religion. It's like, no, but
right. And is feminism about having a choice? Right? Is that really what it is?
Yes.
You think? Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Right. I mean, we're trying to empower women have their own voices.
Right. So I think that like my leaning at the moment would be, don't tell people the way they're supposed to live their lives just because you think they're being oppressed. What if they're not? What if they don't feel oppressed? Like there's that. But I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm sure that people have lots of opinions about that. I don't care to hear from any white women about it. Or anybody that's not Muslim. I would be interested in hearing from Muslim women how they feel about it.
difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. So there's a quandary for us to ponder.
I'm so glad that you asked me
not to
Marie, please. If you had really been like, Marie, what do you think? It's like, what do you think? Who should be? I'd be like, I have no idea.
I think the answer is we have no idea. We can't make that call. But it's been on my mind a lot. So I think that's like there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, ladies. So that's a good point though of what can we do. So that was another thing I quickly talked with my mom of what can we do as white cis women.
Yes, cis women.
White cis women.
Cis sisters.
Cis sisters.
Can we call it?
Ooh,
is that a thing?
I don't know.
Yeah, cis sisters.
That's what we are. Mm-hmm. But what can we do? Obviously you say we can be allies, whatever. But I think the biggest thing my mom and I were saying that we could do is educate ourselves in reading different kinds of books other than ones with the white narrative.
Sure, for sure.
And she does so many things with the church, and she reads all kinds of books by all different kinds of authors and stuff. And so, but when I said that of, maybe we should read other types of books by, this white narrative is so,
and also this
it gets
heterosexual
old.
narrative.
Yes,
too,
and the heterosexual narrative. And I mean, that's one way.
I think, again, like talking to your friend, if somebody's saying something within your community that you don't like to hear, just call it out right away and just like do something about that. I think the term that keeps pumping into my head is like, it's like amplify other people's voices. Mm-hmm. So don't speak over them, don't speak for them, but help amplify those voices. So you can like post stories if they do come up in the media. Mm-hmm. You can, be active in that way. There's also groups and things you can join. Like,
right.
You could join a Black Lives Matter group and try to be more involved in helping with those sorts of things. And I'm sure that they, I don't know all the details of how that works, but I'm sure there's lots of positions you can take that are not, like, let me save the world now and be the one to save it. But where you come, it might even be like administrative stuff, you know what I mean? Where, but any of those things can be helpful. So that's one. I don't know. I mean,
I also heard for us white women to listen more.
And I think honestly,
I feel like, instead of giving your opinion or, oh, you should do this or, just lip
Sure.
Listen to other people's experiences and their stories and, realize how different they are from yours.
Right.
And if they need legal help, I don't know.
Yeah. And be open to learning and I don't know, practice like looking at other people's experiences. You're not the center of the universe. Nobody's the center of the universe.
And we're saying this is to us. Like
absolutely.
Before this day, I didn't quite understand what intersectional feminism really meant, which, now I fully understand.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we fully understand. We're still learning, right?
No, I figured it out. No,
yeah,
clearly not. I know everything. Not at all.
Just like a white woman to say.
Yeah, typical white woman. But especially, I think going forward in
and join
2020
LGBT groups and ally groups, and there's things like that you can do.
But I think more importantly, going into this next election year, really truly finding a candidate that
sure.
shares your views and values and.
But also look outside the box that like maybe your values aren't the only views and values.
Right.
So like that's where again, like I'm not I loved Hillary, whatever, Bernie was great.
Right.
But like,
it's kind of like the Women's March.
Listen to
the Women's March was incredible. Millions of people marched, but it
fell apart because like there's two sort of leaders, two different like fractions of the women's groups coming together and they don't get along.
Right.
And I think what it is one of them is more like a white feminist and the other one's trying to push for more intersectional feminism. Right. And they just don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And like, that's imploding from the inside.
Yeah, that's not good either.
No, it's really bad.
No. I just hope that we stop. I hope that when this election year, we can all... I hope it works out.
Well, my hope too
I'm
is
so
that,
scared.
I'm hopeful too, just because like a lot of these things are coming to light, you know, and you have to see these things before you can like change them. So like what Kimberly was saying.
Right.
And that gives me hope, you know, and you know, if we said something on this podcast that's inaccurate or incomplete, please let us know, because I think that we're all learning.
We're educating
Open to learning and be open to like seeing different perspectives and you know.
And we're educating ourselves, obviously.
Absolutely.
You
and
know,
we don't know anything.
Right.
we're right. We don't know anything.
Right. Two white women just, you know, trying to figure it out, doing comedy and trying to fight for equality.
Yeah.
We're all human.
Absolutely.
That's it. We're all just trying to figure it out.
And this little
be nice to each other.
So anyway, like I hope you learned something and let us know.
I did. Yes.
I mean, yeah, I hope you learned something.
Thanks.
Yeah. So again, send us emails if you'd like, difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com, and tell your friends about the podcast if you're enjoying it. That really helps us out to spread the word.
And if you have examples or stories on this subject
that you'd like people to hear,
we'd love to write us in, and we'd love to share them with our listeners.
Absolutely.
Because again, like we're only talking about our white woman experiences.
That's
so
all we can do.
We'd be happy to share an email if we got it.
Absolutely.
So, again, thank you all so much for giving the space for us to do this.
Yeah,
I mean, again, like this is we're privileged to be able to have this microphone and then put it into the computer and let you hear it. I don't know.
I'm glad you know how to work this thing. Are you going to be able to edit this? Is anyone going to hear this? This will never get out.
Did it record?
I don't know. Maybe not.
All right.
Well,
see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
When we were young, we learned two things. Girls have beans and boys ding-a-lings. Yes, Freud is right about penis envy. I wish you could take yours off and lend it to me, cause if I had a willy for just a day, I'd be standing up and spray all over the place. Put it in a sock can, jerk off, slap it hard across her face.
Don't get me wrong, I'm proud to be a woman. Just sometimes I wonder what it's like to have a dong. Does it hurt to ride a bike? Does it hurt to wear a thong? Can you play it like a flute while singing along?
If I had a willy for just a day, I'd whip it out riding on the subway. Measure its length and compare it to his. If we cross swords, I'd shoot him with my jizz. Whoa, Katy, are you shooting your jizz all over our guitar player right there?
Why, yes, I am. It's full of protein.